All right, sorry for the delay. Had some technical things and just wanted to prep to give everybody watching a better experience. So I apologize for the brief wait. But anyway, based on the results of the poll, which I guess are pretty actually useful, I'm going to be doing the RiverLINE's opening day, which dates from March 14th, 2004, which I think was either a Saturday. It was a weekend. It was a Saturday or a Sunday. And because it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and I think it lined up with spring break or something, I was able to get on it. And it was also the day that I visited Paoli Tower, if you recognize the date from the previous stream. So, anyway, so I'm just gonna get down here today. It's gonna be a two night thing. It's gonna start with, it's gonna start with going up to Trenton. Although there's not a lot of photos on that. And then, early in the RiverLINE's phase, they did not put, there was not the sort of anti-glare stuff on the inner cab, on the partition between the cab and the passenger zone. So I was able to get a whole bunch of reasonable photos out the front. You can't really get that anymore. You can see out the front, but they've put these little things there that make it hard to take. It's a side effect. You can't really take pictures. So, so we get to see some of the stuff from earlier, how the RiverLINE was in its original configuration. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of RiverLINE documentation. Normally, I would be sitting here with all sorts of stuff and giving you the straight dope. But the problem is that because, well, it's not really a problem, but part of the issue is because the RiverLINE is a contract operation, its documents don't tend to show up quite as readily as the regular NJT things, which I have, which is the type of things I have. So I had to do some reverse engineering of the interlocking names for the ones I'm going to be covering. That's a little irritating. That was one of the things that got me delayed today. So if you have any actual information, feel free to correct me. So when they open service, so RiverLINE is a light rail using a a then novel time separation system between light rail and freight operations. It replaced the earlier "we don't give a crap" system that the FRA had, that pertained to the San Diego and Baltimore light rails, which had freight and really didn't seem to really care as long as the freight operations were kind of minimal and yada yada yada. It was only in the mid 90s, with the suddenly enforced crash standards that the FRA was sort of got a bug up its butt about, separating light rail and non-light rail in cases where it really might not quite matter. As opposed to letting light rail trains out on a major freight main line, which is generally not the greatest, versus just letting operations run on a secondary line where there's not a lot of freight to begin with. So this wasn't even the light rail service didn't begin at some magical time like noon or whatever. It started at dawn. Which probably at the time, since daylight time has been expanded since then, would have been, as you can see, dark. And the first train, I don't know how I got down for the first train, because if it was the first train, I think that they ran the first. Oh yeah, they ran the first train out of the yard, and I think that They ran the first train out of the yard, which is next to Pavonia, down to the E Center in Camden, and I was on the first, which I believe was the first train to go to Trenton, but I'm not sure. There wasn't a lot of people there, so maybe I was just out on the first day. I can't actually remember. Usually I thought I would remember if I was actually on the first train. They'd been running a whole bunch of test runs for months and months, so it wasn't like people didn't have a chance to get. I had a chance to get photos before then. So because it was dark, I just ran out, got these. These are type of Stadler LRV. They are diesel powered using a Mercedes Marine diesel. NJT kind of skimped on it, even though the line cost $1 billion. NJT did skimp a little bit in the fact that they bought an engine that was cheaper, even though it was on the verge of not being supported anymore. So now they're, so they got it to last 20 years because currently they're in the position of having to redo and re-engine all the LRVs, but they've kept them going somehow. So anyway, here's arguably the first train to Trenton, at the E-Center Station. It's your typical current low floor LRV setup, which is meh. Limits the number of good seats in the train. Let's see what else. So, like I said, I don't have almost any photos on the first trip because either the train was packed and it was dark. But as you can see, I made it safely. Here we are at Trenton. There's a bunch of people there. As you can, I mean, again, I think that this was the first arrival. The times that would run early on in that system, it tended to run something on the order of like 6 a.m. or between 6 and 7 to 9, which was kind of, it's 9 doesn't get you home in time, especially on the weekends from any sort of show, and that was one of the issues. Over the years, they've expanded hours to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Through use of additional sidings and derails, they managed to have late night service on tracks that light rail controls. So you'll see late night service up to Pennsauken, and down to Bordentown or some other places up there where basically, they have little maintenance stuff and they can run, a final service just in those areas. Today. So they've done a lot of expansion when it first opened. When it first opened, I think it was running half-hourlies only. They did want to get to 15-minute service during the days, but again, when it first opened, they weren't doing 15 minutes, and they've since had to expand some sidings and such. So, after that inaugural run, which I can't even remember. I remember my first run. I was on the Silver Line, one of the Silver Line opening runs, but I can't remember at all the RiverLINE one. So I wasn't going to cram onto another train full of people for like what would be the second train south or something. So I just head down to Trenton, the Trenton Station platforms for some pictures. This is going to be your, where are we here? 4AW and 1AW signals at fare interlocking. The hard part of this today's also the hard part, the meat, the whatever you want to call it, the annoying part is going to be me trying to get the names and stuff as I do the sort of the cab front end tour south. Part of that is because back in the day I didn't have any of the information either, so I just numbered them sequentially. And I can't even find the photos right now. I mean, they're somewhere, but they're completely non-descriptive. So I'm going to be having to do this from scratch. That means a lot of dead air as I try to look up to figure out what I'm describing. Things that I've generally avoided having to stream before. I just got back from a pretty neat trip to Denver where I got some of the classic signaling on the DRGW abandoned or semi-abandoned Tennessee Pass line, which is pretty neat. Oh, here's an interesting thing. I mean, somebody usually stores stuff on that on that number 7 track at Trenton, but the rail's pretty rusty here. Of course, there's always your obligatory R7 ready to head inbound at the Trenton. You know, make that connection from NJT. I'm not sure if they'd raise the price to $10 at this point, but that's what it is today. No, thank you, SEPTA. I always tell people wherever I can go to catch the RiverLINE, which actually has a fun story as I do these opening photos. I was at 30th Street Station once, and you get the typical dude that comes up to you saying that they, you know, need some additional amount of money to catch like the SEPTA train to Trenton. He only had like $5, and he needed some additional money to get to Trenton. And I didn't point out to him that all he had to do was go take Patco and RiverLINE, and it would cost him like well within the amount of money that he had. And he got this like angry, pissed off look on his face and just walked away. Oh, I mean, like, you know, listen, yeah, I could be cynical. I could have just assumed that he was lying, but you know, I tried to take him at his word, and it didn't work. I mean, like okay, so this is the 57 switch. That's the 5BW signal and the 45 derail. So yeah, but no, RiverLINE is despite it being obnoxiously slow compared to SEPTA and a way worse user experience. You can't beat the price, which is still something in the order of like $1.50 or $1.80. I can't remember. It's so inconsequential that I don't even care. Even though Fair Tower is still up, I'm usually gonna just give this I'm gonna treat this like a non-towered interlocking, just because there's been so much stuff around. I can never remember my policy with Fair Tower or Fair interlocking. I think I treat it like a I think I treat it like a non-tower situation. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. So this is your 57 switch. Got an A5. They've been ripping out the pneumatics at Fair, unfortunately. 5BW signal plus the 45 derail. There we go. That cough captured everything there. Your Trenton Station from behind. I don't usually have this angle. By the time I get to Trenton, I just want to get out of there so much that I'm either at the far end of the other platform waiting to get on a train, or I just want to get the heck out of there, and I never get this reverse view of the Trenton Station. Lower head of the 4AW. So, I think, yeah, I forgot that. Every so often I remember that that story from 30th Street. But no, RiverLINE, it's not one of those ones. I think the neatest bit is that it's not one of those things that they sort of built it and abandoned it. There's a lot of light rail lines. Baltimore Light Rail has seen some improvement, but I'm trying to think of there always seem to be a lot of light rail lines that, you know, they build them and then that's sort of it. RiverLINE has certainly been improved more than the Baltimore light rail. Baltimore got new schedules and it got a couple extra. I don't know how much it did get. It got like one turn back and the airport extension and the Penn Station extension, and that's pretty much it. And all those happened in the early 90s. You know, that happened, all that was completed before the light rail, the RiverLINE went into service. Before I get into the RiverLINE, I did see the Glassboro. If you haven't seen it, the Glassboro plan. They put out an EIS. You know, I don't care about EISs, but EISs are a great way to get the dirt on what the plans actually are. And it looks like it's going to be a compatible line for the RiverLINE, which, you know, it didn't say it, but it highly implied that, which means that they're probably going to be using the automatic train stop system on the RiverLINE, and as well as the way the RiverLINE does its signaling that I'll go into, which when I get to that point. So that's good, but the sort of downside is that, well, at least parts are going to drive up the cost, that it's going to be on a separate right of way through most of Camden. That's, you know, it's on a elevated right away. It's gonna let. I mean, they got to do that to serve some of the stuff a little bit better. But it's funny because the existing right of way, freight, you know, former PRSL right of way through Camden was elevated itself, so it wouldn't interfere with the streets. And there's not a lot of freight traffic. I was down at CP Brown today getting pictures, and you know, they've unlike Norfolk Southern, which wants to rip out signaling everywhere it goes. I guess Conrail got that out of its system because, you know, they've re-signaled, you know, down to Paulsboro. Brown got new signals. I wasn't even aware. They're in the Conrail style, but they actually, the Bolson Street Yard got a new signal on it, and they put in new of those Alstom 4000 switch machines that are kind of crap. Anyway, what was I saying? But it looks like a pretty neat system. It's going to do the same sort of thing where it's going to avoid any direct conflict. It's almost totally avoid any direct conflict with the freight railroads. They're going to have I think they're going to share through some interlockings, but that's fine. I'm glad that you know, that's something that shouldn't be controversial at all. Mainly the one at Brown, and then they're going to have their own, effectively their own tracks down to like Woodbury Heights, and below there they're going to have a time-separated track. So for most of the day it's going to be two tracks, but like in evenings it'll be down to one track, and the second track will be dedicated for freight. And, you know, that's great. That's how it should be. You know, that's a good solution. So go check out that EIS. It's pretty interesting, and I don't know if they're ever going to, you know, it's one of those, it's like the Wawa extension. You know, they're going to study it to death, but I think there's a good chance that, especially if we have Biden infrastructure week coming up, that could get funded. Here we have a neat spare air cylinder. I know there's a couple of these hanging out at Thorn, but they're ungodly heavy. But with Thorn Tower rapidly not being whatever, I might want to go pick one up or something. But my contact there is gone, so I generally don't want to grab stuff that's actually useful. But there's just such a dwindling number of air plants these days. Oh man, I missed a lot of comments. Okay, so a couple things. First off, I'm not generally opposed to, you know, having a class of service, you know, a class of service and class of equipment that's designed for general interchange on U.S. rail network. It should mean, you know, if something can go and run just go anywhere in the country and run anywhere in the country. Like, that should be a thing. But when you have stuff like, light rail systems and whatnot, like, you shouldn't get around it. You shouldn't use light rail as a loophole to be able to put like rinky-dink trains just out on the main line going 80 miles an hour in the middle of upstate New York. But where you have legitimately low they should have a hearing where it's like, oh, there is like one local freight on this line per day, and it's really not a problem. Like, that's where that's where you're not going to have an issue. The second thing you're talking about is joint SEPTA NJT. Like, Amtrak's never gonna. First off, Amtrak's never gonna that it's their track, and they because they can run that through service. That cross subsidizes a lot of stuff. NEC is not cheap to maintain. It costs something on the order of $1 billion a year just for the basic maintenance. Amtrak's not going to be super thrilled about a competing through service that that soaks away, that leaves it stuck with having to maintain the NEC and not have the and takes away its profit source. This is the problem with European rail shared infrastructure models. That it gets rid of all your opportunities for cross subsidization, and then requires direct, full subsidization of the state-owned enterprises, and then the EU gets mad at that. So, I don't think it's a great idea. I think it's just a pointless thing. If you want a one-seat ride on the corridor, you just go pay for it. The other issue you have with that shared system is that NJT and or PA, but specifically NJT is gonna go out of its way not to pay a dime to subsidize some Pennsylvania residents' transit ride. And there's just like, what do you call that? What the hell did I just do? Just like there's no trust with the Port Authority, New York, New Jersey, you're going to get the exact same thing with NJT and SEPTA. And I don't think it's paranoid either. And all these things, they're always looking for ways to pawn off the costs on the other state. So, the other issue that you have in this country is people, don't chase one-seat rides. You really don't need to chase them. It's if your service runs at a reasonable interval and is reliable, let people change trains. Problem is that our services usually run hourly and are unreliable, and then when you miss your connection, your 45-minute wait becomes like an hour and 45-minute wait or whatever. So, no balloons, opening day, blah blah blah. Here we have 3514 and 3511 is still there. So, like I said, they weren't running 15 minutes yet, and this also might be a Sunday. I can figure out what day it is. 2004 March 14th was a Sunday. Okay, they're not going to have 15-minute service regardless. So one of the interesting things that also can get lost in this, oops, I'm using the wrong thing there. It's easy to remember. It's easy to forget. Back in the day, the RiverLINE branding was, I won't say it's controversial, but it felt a little forced. For the longest time, this whole thing had been sold as South Jersey Light Rail or the South Jersey Light Rail Transit System, and they were the people who are now on transit Twitter these days. Their transit advocates were out that day, and they'd all been calling it snidgelurts. SNJLRTS. And I can see why they had to NJT found a different brand, but they were all using that term because apparently in all the advocacy circles, that's how it had been branded, and they just had to try to find some way to pronounce it. I think that they believed that other people were legitimately calling it the snidge, and that they thought that was some sort of bird, not like that they felt like that there should be like a bird that was the way to brand it, and there should be like a bird and that what that would be like represented by a bird as the mascot. I wasn't a huge fan of the RiverLINE thing just because it collided with all the other river lines out there. I also didn't like. I was also a little weird that the capitalization reminded me of the recently, Seinfeld was still fresh in everybody's mind, and that whole issue with the capitalization, like RiverLINE with the exclamation point there. So, like I said, I'm just doing here's some fun stuff from the Trenton Transit Center. Other couple things. Although the RiverLINE has been had new track and stuff to make the service better, they still have never managed to. Oh, I didn't point that out. This odd station where it ends at this angle here. The whole point was this was designed to turn onto the street and go down to the Capitol, and they've never done that. I don't know. Street running's cheap. I don't know. It's so weird that they just never. The thing that they were like, oh, coming soon. Once we get another round of funding, we'll extend this the mile down to the Capitol, the place where everybody works. They've just never bothered to do it. I don't know. The other thing that they've never bothered to do is make the connection. NJT RiverLINE trains. Without fail, will are scheduled to depart 1 minute before or after the scheduled arrival of a corridor train. It's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating that when I'm trying to get NJT from New York to South Jersey, that I can't make that connection. It's an intentionally missed connection. Oh, I hate that. Because, it's going to add, depending on the time of day, it's going to add either 15 or 15, 20, or 30 minutes to your trip. And maybe they because it's the station isn't directly connecting, they figure that people are going to need time to walk up and walk over, so maybe that is, but it's just, make it 5 minutes the opposite way, because there's no shared track. It's not like they have the RiverLINE has slots. It's a clock face schedule everywhere. They can just adjust that dial. It's like changing the timing on your distributor cap. You just turn it and just change that clock face, and then suddenly they're making you have 5 minutes for every NEC connection. Oh God, I hate that. I don't know why. It just makes me want to scream. So speaking of, honestly, the thing that now I know they want to go to the Capitol, but without the Capitol, what they should have done is, speaking of FRA and stuff, they should have these things go down the hill track and be able to platform make a platform down at the Trenton and have a connection there. It's not. We're not saying run these light rail cars on the NEC. Can you get them down? Why not have a connection so that they can use there's yard space north of the thing. You can have them, have an across the platform transfer or, an across the track transfer. That's the things that would be nice for these systems to have. Now, where you get complicated things is, well, then can I have a locomotive hauled service starting at Camden and run up all the NEC, and then you're getting full type of locomotives running in conjunction with the LRVs, and then that's its own bag of worms. So, I went and dug up what these signals were, but now I don't know where I had that information. Oh man, I had them just a second ago, but I don't know where they were. So in this one, these are automatics, but they're not marked. And just a few minutes ago, I was able to go and dig out what the numbers were on those, but I'm not sure where they are. Wait, hold on, I have it here. It's like 32 something. Oh, damn, I never wrote that down. Now it's out of my head. Sorry, this is one of the things I was trying to avoid earlier. What do we got here? Okay, so anyway, this is me getting into needing to get names and numbers, and now I've forgotten. So just one second. There they are. 331. So the way they do their signaling is the signal number plates is Conrail style with milepost track number and the direction. So that gets me half of what I need with track numbers and directions. But the unlike Conrail, which uses whole miles, they use down to the tenth. So this is milepost 33.1 from Trenton. I'm not sure exactly where in Trenton. Probably where it rolls up onto the probably Broadway. They probably started at Broadway. Anyway, and their CPs are milepost to the 10th. So I don't know the exact CPs because they have signs, but the signs over the last 15 years have faded away, so you can't see what the actual number is using Google Earth. So, anywho, this is just going to be a whole bunch of me dealing with stuff. So these weren't numbered in this day and age, but they are numbered now. A rare instance of a automatic dwarf where you get double green clears under NORAC. Still pretty cool. So for my naming, I use SJLR because that's what I was using back in the day. And again, Trenton Station. Yeah, the LRVs have held up pretty well. I don't know what they need to maintain their service. I think they have something on the order of like 18 or 20. They run 2-car sets max, and they have enough to do a 15-minute schedule. But I don't know, how many. They seem to have a bunch left over. All right, here we go. So this is what I'm being forced to call so it's I'm not sure if this is going to be CP330 because there's milepost 33, or is it CP 329? Because it could be either one because the milepost is in the middle of the interlocking. So probably just go with 330 since I actually have the milepost right there. No, where's my leveler? So yeah, today this view out the front, which is through two panes of glass, they put like cross hatching on the inner one, so you can't, you can see, but you can't really get a good picture or anything out of it. You can get a decent, if I was taking video or whatever, it would be passable, but it's not great. All right. This is also where it connects. This is right out of the ramp out of the station. Here, I'll show you where this is. Here we go. So this is the old Bordentown line. There used to be a direct connection down to the Trenton station. This is where the PR Doodlebugs and the other service, the Nellie Bly, would use this ramp here. That's what I was talking about. Like, it'd be nice if you could just have a RiverLINE train roll down and platform on track 5 there. I don't know how often track 5 is currently used. Here's where you can see the station, and their plan was to have it just roll onto this street there, and then where's the state office complex? Now maybe there's a reason that they didn't do that. So State House is in there somewhere. There it is. There's the State House. So they sort of wanted to roll that onto the street. I guess it would have gone down and made a turn. Well, where am I? And you got some event space there. Not sure whose that is. Never heard of them. That's probably where, I don't know who the hell plays there. So at the time, this Bordentown secondary connector, which loops through town along the old canal towpath, and then down there, and then there's another line where go the Belvedere and Delaware line. That was still used back then. The connection is still there. The signals are there. The switch is there, but nothing has used that track in some time. So, I'm not sure why I'm really going on there, but here we have the what do you call that? They have a maintenance base. It's for light inspection and storage. Not really a maintenance base, but it's light inspection and storage up here at Trenton. So they don't have to get everything back from Trenton to the real maintenance facility at Pavonia Yard in Camden. They can store stuff overnight here, and that's part of the things they've been doing. They have several midpoint storage locations, so they don't have to. When the line opens for light rail service, they don't have to go and run a train from the yard down to the service endpoint after their clock starts or stops. They often have, in many situations, the RiverLINE can just, as soon as that clock, they're leaving Conrail territory as soon as that time window ticks off. Either, any of the point where Conrail actually needs to operate, which is pretty much from Hatch up to Burlington, but maybe Bordentown. Yeah, Hatch to Bordentown. This was an interesting little thing. I'm not sure what the point of this was. They had like an extra crossover here. At this point in time, it was a full crossover. Today, it's only a half. Again, I'm not sure why that was there. When you have this. Oh no, that's right. This was to support actual freight trains because no way they were going to navigate that scissors crossover back at CP 330. So this allows a freight train to, in theory, come off the Bordentown branch and then cross over. So I'm just gonna go. I had to. It's somewhere I was calculating the distance. Yeah, here we go. I was calculating the distance between these two at 2,700 feet, which is about half a mile thereabouts. So it would look like 325 maybe. So that's the thing. I can look at the equipment shed. The sign is there, but it's just faded over the years. Okay, we're good. Trying to see what they'd have there on that signal. Yeah, I'm not going to try to figure it out. Any train crossing over is likely going to get a slow approach. Which I guess is just yellow over red. So it's green, yellow, something green, and then something else that I can't see. I would expect that to have two reds in there. But I don't know. Here we have our crossover. There used to be two, but this one I think is still there. Yeah, this is the type of survey of photos that I didn't take a lot of back in the day, and I do not subject you folks to. So we are now south of town. That's going to be Interstate 295 there. Let's see what we got. And by the way, let me just make sure that... okay, we can see everything. Everything's good. Cancel that. All right, so RiverLINE comes south of town. This is right there. So there's some sort of fossil fuel power plant down there that currently gets its, let's just see, Wikimap always has good stuff here. Mercer Generating Station, coal and gas-fired power plant, Hamilton Township, blah, 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 shut down in 2017. Okay, so that's some degree of completely shut down. Probably going to build us some sort of gas-fired cogen on site. Old power plants always stay power plants. It's just what kind. Especially in South Jersey, you see this a lot. Oh, great. Hold on. I wanted to point out that the rail connection in there, but I don't know where it is. They might have taken it out. So... yeah, that's got to be that. Yeah, that can't be there. So somewhere in here, yeah, there it is. Yeah, they've even totally removed it. So there's a lot of neat stuff here. Even before today's unfavorable economic conditions for coal and gas, for coal. Rail was never, if a power plant could avoid getting a rail shipment, it would almost always try to go with boat, and that's why you have this coal-fired power plant in New Jersey without a rail. It has a rail connection, with an unused rail connection. By the way, that's going to be about milepost 31.6. So, it just for all the people who bemoan. If you ever talk with people who are bemoaning the loss of coal, just or especially the effect of it on the railroad, just be like, power plants hated shipping via train. They hated it. That's why you had this abandoned rail connection to a coal-fired power plant. It got it from the river. Way cheaper. What is this? 309. 31.6. Getting to our first, well, sorry, I won't say our first one. Our first real interlocking here. This is what I'm going to tentatively call CP309. RiverLINE, as built, had a lot of single track and passing sidings. Still does, but they have eliminated some of them to get more reliable service. They had a whole bunch of timed meets. If anything got late, it would start delaying stuff. RiverLINE used non-Darth Vader safe train traffic light signals, and it also used the maximum efficiency possible. So as you can see here on this track 1, you know two reds if possible. You know, like they did not generally go with the 2 reds. This only needs top head. Only, you know, if your bottom head. So trying to describe this. If they didn't need a lamp, they didn't include it. And if it wasn't needed full time, they're going to leave it dark. So, you know, here your top head is going to be your through, you know, red, green, yellow, green, yellow, red. The bottom one is for your red over yellow restricting. They don't need it. They're not lighting it. Over here, you have your red over yellow, your red over green over red, limited clear. Would also give you your red over yellow over red, medium approach. Sorry. Medium clear and medium approach, and you're restricting. So yes, I guess they could have done a little bit more here, but I guess they, I assume they just didn't want to have a flashing relay. Also the non-cab signal territory D boards. One, I guess, real good advantage of the light rail thing is, though, it will likely not have a PTC. We'll probably get a PTC exemption, and part of it is because they did have positive stop. As possibly the only what do you call that example in the U.S. They had overlaps in the direction that matters. So I'm going to say this again for anyone people who haven't heard it. PTC does not prevent trains running stop signals. PTC prevents collisions. Therefore, the positive stop location is not the signal. It is by regulation. It is the fouling point of the first trailing point crossover. So, as you can see here, you have these ATS shoes, the same type they use out west, but in these actually trigger the train to stop. But they have an overlap, so the train when a train hits that, it's going to go max braking with the track brakes, and this little LRV, even at a top speed of 60, 70 miles an hour, it's just going to be able to stop. It's just going to, like, people are going to get injured and thrown to the floor, but it's going to be able to get itself stopped before it hits the fouling point of that trailing point switch. Meanwhile, this signal doesn't need an overlap because it's coming out of single track territory. So no matter what the position of that switch, it just has to get stopped by here. So it's going to get knocked at that side and go here. So this other one where you actually have a conflicting movement, so there's a clear signal there. They need to make sure that he gets stopped before he fouls that trailing point switch. I know that you can go watch this again and listen to my explanation again. But that's a really great rule of thumb to figure out, like, when do things matter or when do they not matter. It's not entirely intuitive, but it's getting stopped by the fouling point of the trailing point switch, not a facing point switch. You can do a little pocket experiment on a piece of paper. Sorry, a piece of paper experiment, pen and paper, and you can see why that's the case. Now, by the way, PTC requires other stuff for train-to-train collision on the same track, but for the type of collisions where you have the real gnarly head-on ones, it's the fouling point or the first trailing point switch. I'll probably have to go. I'll go over that again tomorrow. Wow, they're coming fast and loose here. I think that's the term. Another thing that the RiverLINE did right was that under NORAC you have the various things saying approach signal, immediately slow to medium speed, or any of the specifically approach. The RiverLINE has its own these little light LRV markers. That's for LRV approach. That means the LRV can blast past an approach signal and maintain full speed until it passes the LRV marker, simply because of their enhanced their really good braking rates, because they have track brakes and dynamic. They have the full suite of get this thing stopped. So it's just pretty cool that that for all the bugaboo that the FRA, since they were involved, that they were actually really amenable to a lot of very innovative ways to do operations. So that's going to be about 1.3 miles, so 30.9, 29.9, 29.6. I don't know what... Another neat thing to notice here, that they have this walkway to nowhere. That was because this bridge was rehabbed. I'm not sure how much it was rebuilt. I know it was rehabbed. It was a piling bridge. And, I don't know how much traffic, again, when it was built, there was an amount of freight traffic still using it, but there's none today. And they 100% knew that if they didn't do something, because locals used the bridge to get to this little spit of land over here to do fishing and recreation and whatever. And they knew that no matter, they could have this fight with fences and cameras and police and tickets to keep people off the bridge, but ultimately they just put a walkway. And it's a walkway to absolutely nowhere. There it looks like it's going somewhere, but if you 20 years later, there might be an actual path now. I don't know. It definitely peters out into nothing. But it's like the proverbial bridge to nowhere. There it goes. Yeah, so the bridge does go somewhere. It's become a nature trail. So it goes over there. I think it fully runs along. Let's see what Google Maps says. Yeah, Google Maps has it listed as a path. The Delaware and Raritan Canal, blah, 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 path. Great, super. But that's new. It wasn't even that they put that bridge in as a plan for it. It was people are going to use the bridge. Locals are going to use it to get to the island. Let's just make them a pedestrian walkway. And that's one of those things that environmental impact statements actually identify and correct. All right, let's see make sure I haven't borked the picture. Whoops, that's not it. Here it is. Okay, they got 20 then. It was something around 20. Yeah, so freight operates, I'll get there, I'll cover it today. Freight does operate on the the non-connecting freight, so Cove Road. Just go to Cove Road. You have one RiverLINE train, and you have everything coming out of Pavonia. My rail friend, Bob, he lives by Cove Road. As in, like, he just goes there. He's retired, so he can do that. He just rolls down to Cove Road, like, every morning and catches 39G, ready to depart Pavonia, and gets it with a RiverLINE train. If that counts. And also they do switching operations and service local industry during the day up at Burlington, and you'll see how they do that. Here we go. So here's the bridge. That's the 295 bridge from the other one. Doesn't really matter. So. Here we are at what I'm going to have to call. The CIH is directly opposite to the thing there, the milepost. I'm definitely going to call the CP270. I actually had a guy on the RiverLINE. There's a couple interesting things I want to mention about more RiverLINE design ops. One, they actually found they found something that was close to PRR railing as possible. If you look at it, it's this, it's that if you know PRR railing, it's that sort of U-shaped and the pipes run through it, because that was the most efficient rail that the PR could find. They found something that approximates it. Second, I actually had the guy, a RiverLINE guy, apologize to me because they had to use Core 10 steel instead of, like, they wanted to paint it like PRR, or they wanted to use non-weathering steel and paint it like PRR colors, like Tuscan red, but they had to use this, and I was like, no, that's fine. I mean, it's a Conrail. Conrail did that, so I didn't even care, and I didn't, I don't know why the guy was apologizing to me, but he felt that they could have done better. But so the people who designed this thing were like super they were in the scene. There's all sorts of like crazy PRR nods to PRR heritage all over this line. It's really funky. Probably one of the very few situations you have like some sort of transit system designed with rail fans in the plant, directly who can make decisions. And they kept it all on the down low too, so they weren't really. It's clear when you see the railing. And the railing they got from a local supplier, so they could justify it for buy local provisions. This is make no bones about it. This was Sweeney. He's a big machine politician in South Jersey, head of the state assembly, and with all the transit money going to North Jersey, it's one of those things where he's able to go and every so often get a project down at South Jersey. So that's good. It's people who complain about how politics are supposed to work weren't around when politics actually did work, which was through most of which is why the Republicans tried to kill it back in the 90s, because it worked too well. Government doing things for people, can't have that. Anyway, here's your Bordentown industrial track. That's still used. I don't know what that BTC sign stands for. Could be marking the derail. There's a bunch of stuff that was out that was sort of a holdover from the testing period. For example, you notice that a lot of the switches had these hand throw flags on them, because when they were installing the line, the stuff was there, but it was operated under hand throw for a while, so they had those little flags. if anybody cares. We're south. This is a little slow bit. Another neat bit that you don't know. Anyone who doesn't want to pay expensive parking at Hamilton, which is like $8+ a day, just come down to Bordentown. If you're coming from the south, especially, you get off 295 here at your exit 57. Go up to the first light, drive through town, keep it at 25. The cops probably are a little aggressive there. Go down to this parking lot. It's free. Hop on a light rail. You're gonna pay your $1.50, $1.80, whatever it is. Get you up to Trenton. Maybe your connection's gonna stink, but you're gonna save a lot of money when it comes to if you don't want to pay that parking at Hamilton. Of course, Hamilton is just a lot faster. Only time I usually go up to Hamilton is to get up there for the nostalgia trains that they run in the holiday trains on the NYC subway. So the parking at Bordentown is a great solution if you can get back there before the last train runs. And those trains not on a weekend, on weekdays. The last train I think pulls out of Trenton. This is another major issue. The last RiverLINE train pulls out of Trenton at a reasonable something after 9. I mean, then that's not that strict 9 that it used to be. There's a little bit of wiggle room to get all the way down to Camden. It's going to leave. I think it leaves like 7 or 8. But the major issue that you get is that to get to Trenton for that whatever last train is, you got to leave New York really early, especially if you want to get to Camden, because you got to be leaving New York. Your last train leaving New York is something in the order of like 6:30 to get to Trenton by like 7, like by 8 to catch that last train to get you to Camden. And that's a major shortcoming of the time system on normal weekdays. And I understand that there's not a lot they can do about that. But Bordentown, they can run additional service. They can run later service to Bordentown. I don't have the schedule on me. Here we go. Here we have finally have some intermediate signals. Again, they're doing absolute number of a minimum number of signal lamps. This is the 225.4 signals. Let's pull those up real quick. Here we go. See, you get down this. So this is right in here. Not there. No. Yeah, it's this. Again, a lot of the freight has gone off the line. You can see whatever was there has been largely replaced by development. Unless the freight was serving this dude, which is a brick plant. But here in 2004, you had a carload, on the delivery siding right there. So that's pretty neat. So 2542S. S. So despite like all the single tracking when they built it, there's just an absolute ton. I mean, they still cost $1 billion. So, but I guess today everything costs $1 billion. Now note the ATS shoes are only at the Oh, that's why that signal head had the 3 heads, because it needed to be able to display medium or approach medium. RiverLINE, at least until recently, is one of the easiest places to catch medium or approach medium indications. They really liked them. A lot of back-to-back interlockings. Where they don't need medium approach medium, they're just going to have the single red and then 2. So, and here, they're not even doing a restricting. I don't know why they're not having a restricting head there. Sometimes you don't get restricting heads. It's a signal. I need to find someone to explain why. This is 240. I calculated. Like why so many single track things don't have the restricting heads going from the double track into the single track, or sometimes they do. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what. Like what extra money you need for the restricting head from a single to double track. I see it a lot where you don't get that restricting head. And here we have CP, what I'm assuming is 240. Please correct me if you actually know what the CPs are, because I have a RiverLINE paper somewhere that explains the whole LRV signaling exception and a couple other things, but I can't find it for the life of me. And I'm not sure it has. If anything was going to have the track diagram, it'd be that. But I've been very remiss about not finding a track diagram for the RiverLINE. Just here we have the reverse thing going into the single track section. These are derelict GE 44-ton switchers at the old Roebling steel mill. They'd been there for ages. I don't know where they went. They got preserved. There was the typical, like, fight over their fate and blah, 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 blah. But they ended up somewhere. Let me make sure that I didn't kill the picture. Yeah, we're good. I'll zip down till I get to that point. Where's that Roebling steel mill? It's like U.S. pipe. It's right there. 15 years ago, or almost 20 years ago, there was still the remains of the Roebling steel mill. Now they've really, done the super fun thing on it. They kept up like one. They put a smattering of stuff there, but it's looks like it's been remediated. Yeah, this is, yes, and when I say Roebling Steel Mill in Roebling, New Jersey, it's the Roebling guy that did all the Brooklyn Bridge and the wire and all that stuff. It's the same dude. I have to try to look this up 1 second. Try to find what happened to those. Yep, there it is. So this is 2011. Yeah, this stuff was around there for a while. I just don't know where it went. Uh-oh, it went to Pemberton. That's a problem. Because that guy had to move it all. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the problem with the Pemberton Historical Trust is they got evicted, so I don't know where it went. Maryland and Pennsylvania. Got it, looks like. Alright, I'm wasting your time. I'm sorry. I could ask my railroad historical study. They'd know where the heck the where those went. And here's what the Roebling plant looked like before. Very urbex friendly before they got scrubbed into a generic green space. But think of the children. I'm gonna have to try to. So here's where I get back into the whole issue of not having any. So that was 240, the last CP. So I have to go back to that start of the single track section. Right there. And by the way, this is the nicest part of the line. There's no stations. Trains hit whatever the maximum speed currently is. They've been trying to raise it up to like 70 or 75 miles an hour. So it's about point. So it's 23.2 thereabouts. $23.2. And new interlocking. Which one is it? I don't know. Oh, I know which one. This one actually has a name. It's CP Dell. So, just trying to throw us off the track more. I mean, throw us off the scent. They're going to now be inconsistent about how they do the naming. So, whatever. Or was... Oh, no, this isn't Dell. This is... This should be... Yeah. So this here is the north end of the Burlington Freight Zone. Between... pull this up on this stuff. South here, Roebling. If I go to the diagram here, you can see there's a whole bunch of industrial stuff. There used to be a U.S. pipe plant down there. There's a GS distribution center. All of this... there's an Amazon warehouse, all sorts of stuff with industrial tracks, specifically this big old industrial tracks, and that one there. I'm not sure what all is being used. That U.S. pipe track doesn't look too healthy. After they zapped U.S. pipe, that was a shame. Either way, there are some active rail lines. This one, for example. So what they do is during the day they have Conrail. The Conrail has an isolated track, and it can do a combination of serving local industry and blocking up the local freight for when they get their time out on the line. So it's like a 3-track yard. There's a yard office somewhere in there. By the way, there's also a RiverLINE. No, that's an engine pit for them. I'll show you what the RiverLINE stuff is. There's a yard office right there. Some freight. And they will go a lot less local freight than they used to be. I'm noticing a lot of cut tracks. But the Burlington Freight Island is where the local stuff can work all day outside the time zones to do whatever work they can do during the day. This is the thing I said. I looked it up using Street View, and this is one of the ones that has a legible interlocking name. The colors for the interlocking names, the signs are PRSL, like burgundy and yellow, or PRR, whatever. I guess it would be PRR. And then there's the old this is your freight house. There's an old Burlington. What is it? Not sure whose it was. There it is. We can have a description of that. No, it's an old PRR freight house. Is there? It's pretty neat. All right, and here we have the next one. Did I write this down? I hope so. CP213, I believe. Again, you got a 3-headed mast, so you can have medium approach, medium indications. And there you can see the approaching RiverLINE train. This is how they do the meets. So at this point in time, before they put in, since this time they've added some extra, they've extended some of the double track. I think this is one of the areas, because they had a very, very short timed meets. You can see the train approaching just as we get there. And we've got to clear up and both do our station. So there was just things had to run pretty close to clockwork, or you're going to start getting a little bit of delays worked in there. So here we have the Florence Station, and I believe that's still the end of the single track, but they might have double track was usually as long as they could make it. Yeah, so this is an original. This is not reconfigured. They have a 2-block long double track portion, and trains are timed to meet at that station. A lot of parking available. That's pretty neat. A lot of parking available. Wow. Whew. Is that even their parking? Yeah, it is. Just an absolute acre of parking. You got to have some of those autocross guys going nuts in there, probably. Yeah, that's right. I had this as what did I say? I had this as CP 213. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is taking longer than anticipated, but there's a lot to say about this. And again, there's your freight track jointed rail, so they can use that. Shared Ass Conrail can use that freight track 24/7. That is not part of the RiverLINE system there. Yeah, we were running on time, but you can just see how closely timed out. There's not a lot of room for error. So one more set here. Yeah. That'll get us to Burlington, and then we'll hit the rest tomorrow. Try to figure out if I've used all my stories or not. So here we have 35... 18 or 13. Looks like a 13. 3513 here approaching Florence. You can see the railing there and the PR style, which is pretty cool. Can never remember how to spell Florence. Florence. 3513. Here we have the 205 intermediates, or milepost 20.5. I guess there might be some single block sidings, but I don't think there's anything where it's single block to like we only have a small little pocket. There's not a lot of intermediates on these. In fact, there's not a lot of intermediates on a lot of routes with, single track with passing siding, but very closely spaced passing sidings. You don't get a lot. There're not a lot of intermediates on those sometimes. You can do it where there's barely any. I was looking at some of those NS abandonment, and they'll have a bunch of interlockings and then like 6 intermediate signals. I'm like, wow, how do they do that? Not a lot of intermediates. But if you're using 3-mile-long blocks, you only need 1 intermediate between, if your passing sidings are 6 miles apart, you only need 1 intermediate between them. Today, there has been some modifications in here. So this was sort of an access into the Burlington yard. This has been redone. Hold on, I'll pull it up. Oops. So there's the intermediate right there. So there's that cantilever. So I said I was looking at a bunch of these today just to try to see if I could read the stuff. So if I go here, right across the street, there's the sign CP, and I can't read it. It's just completely faded. Meanwhile, the NS, I won't say NS, but the powers that be have showed up with modification. All modifications since the original have been in the NS style. I don't know why. This is a Conrail kind of property, and Conrail's still pretty good about using their own target type signals with painted backgrounds and everything. So I just don't know why the new RiverLINE stuff is NS. Or it looks like they needed to put in a additional head. No, I don't even know why they did that. Maybe it was just bright. I guess it was bright. Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep that junk in the frame. So I had this down as CP198. I think because there's a milepost. I went over here on Street View, and there's a thing that told you the milepost, like right there, and it's 19.8. So there you go. And your cute little doll arm. It's not a doll arm, but your blue light over the freight track. This is where you have a headspace. There's the yard office. This is a head shunt, so this is normally restricting in both directions on the yard track. This is just a more direct way for trains to be able to get into the core of the North Burlington yard. What appears to be CSX 4403 in Conrail colors. Not probably a GP40, but I can go check. I had that ready to go. What is it? That's not it. 4403. Would have been, or it still is, a GP40-2. Oh, yeah, this is the other question. So if that's 19.8, then the next interlocking is... See, that's the thing. I don't know, like, where do they tag it? Because I think this is all part of the same interlocking. Because I don't see it's like a location B thing going on down here. No, there it is. So this would be about 19.3. And you can see, again, freight operations there. But from what I've noticed, the freight ops at on the board on this route has really fallen off. It's a shame. You know, just the decline in industry since 2003 with recessions and the China shock has just put a lot of local industry, zapped a lot of the local industry that used to be here. And, it's like, even back then, the decline in carload freight was palpable from what you would see in the books. But now I'm looking back over my own photos and seeing a further decline in carload freight. It's sad. But at the same point, there's still a lot being made. It's just but the question is it the lack of industry or the lack of hustle on the part of the railroads to drum up business? As we've seen with a number of entrepreneurial railroads all over the place, that they can get business if they try for it. So here you have the South. This is CP, or approximately CP 184. And this again is mainly serving the southern end of the Burlington Freight Island. I should probably check for comments. I didn't do it the last time. There they are. Yeah, throw up any questions. I'm sort of getting near the end here. Again, more pictures from CP 184. As we approach Burlington. Now, this is a lot of the single tracking in here is sort of discretionary single tracking. This is the one major piece, and this is one of the major pieces of mandatory second tracking. Sorry, single tracking. North of Burlington was also always single tracked. They add that double track segment was kind of an addition. So, because Burlington has what I guess some people would call street running, but is kind of maybe not street running. It's depending on, because it's in a central reservation, so it's not in the street, but it's kind of in the street. We need a ruling. We need this is Burlington at St. Mary Street. I gotta go and get that mileage. So that thing was 184. Not that one. This interlocking is CP 184. So I use a lot of Wikimapy, and one of the tools it has is really neat distance measuring, and what I use for estimating a lot of my railroad mileposts. St. Mary Street appears to be at about milepost 18.1. Ooh, whoopsies. Okay, that's a little bit better. I have a bunch of these little streets here. Like this is going to be York Street. Probably crossing St. Mary's. Yeah. Just going to do square cuts in here for the aspect ratio. Oopsies. Okay, 1 second. I gotta over-saving these a little bit. Okay. There we go. That's better. What the heck? There it goes. This is somewhere in here. We'd have that milepost, but I don't know where it would be. Stacy Street. Man, I burned like 4 photos on this whole street running segment. I don't know why. When my camera didn't have a lot to begin with. And our final photo of the day, the Burlington Central Station. I think it's just called Burlington. There's a park ride. Burlington South is the park ride. So sorry if that's bogged down a little bit. I'll be here to answer questions. But hey, there's a lot of neat stuff that sort of came to mind as I was doing this, which is why. So if you missed anything, this will probably be made available shortly. I have a couple videos from my Denver trip I'm gonna put up, so I might put them up with this, with one of these. But if not, it'll be up in a week or two. I can also drop the link in the chat. Okay, that appears to be everything for today. I'm just gonna go do some quick cleanup here. This would be nice to make these more available to every, this is a really good photo set to be made available to people. Tomorrow will hopefully be a little bit shorter, by a few photos. Let's see what we got going on here. Oops. Where's that? There it is. Yeah, there's a couple examples of it, but so anyway, I hope you all had fun. And I will be back tomorrow. So it's late. I'll be back tomorrow to finish it up. Thank you guys for coming out. It should be a little earlier. I'll probably do it early because it's Sunday. I'll probably be on about 9 tomorrow, which would be March 21st. Thanks for coming out. I'm going to head it off. Throw me questions in chat, and tomorrow I'll see if I can put a link up for anyone who missed today's. All right. I'll see you. Have a wonderful night and stay safe.